So, like just as a what to say, uh, recap, right? So biscuits, I think I've already told. So according to the BIS classification, you have sweet, semi-sweet crackers, cookies, and specialty biscuits. Now I think I already told you, cookies are those which have a higher amount of fat. Now UK classification is hard dough biscuit, which I think I already told you. Dough used is similar to bread dough, that is water is added, and hard dough biscuits are characterized by a low fat and a low sugar. I think I already told you the amount of fat added in the case of biscuits or cookies range between um, fat and sugar range between 20 to 40 parts for every 100 part of the wheat flour. Now, when I'm going to have a fat or a sugar um, less than 20, you call it as a hard dough biscuit. And one more characteristic feature of the hard dough biscuit is that these are leavened by yeast, similar to that which is observed in the case of bread. Fine. So mixing of flour to maximize gluten development, that is water is added. Dough is elastic, very low fat and sugar. I think I already told you. Examples are crackers. I think I already told you. Short dough biscuits are those which are most related to cake dough. What is we'll see shortly after that what is a cake dough. That is, it has a high amount of fat and sugar. The fat and sugar are first creamed, to then added the flour. Now, in the case of a short dough biscuit, gluten development is prevented. So, I think that this is what already told. So, then again, you have the USA classification where it is based on the type of what to say, the way it is manufactured. So, one is sheeting or cutting. The case of sheeting or cutting, which is almost sheeting, the moment you say sheeting, it means that it is a what to say, uh, lamination to and this is done by a comparatively similar to what is called as a hard dough biscuit. I think I already told the examples are something like Marigold or Crackjack. I think that day itself I told, right? Yes, no? Am I
Yes,
right?
sir.
So they come under what are called as the hard dough biscuits. Okay. So that is the thing. So these have if you see, I think you know, Marigold has comparatively low fat. So depending on the fat added, so these have a comparatively low fat. These also have a these are normally yeast leavened. If you consider crackjack or Monaco, if you observe, you have a yeast leavened. Okay. Of course, as I said, I think for some of you, I have given the quality assessment as these biscuits. So once you come here, once you do it, you will be able to understand. The other thing is a rotary molding. What is rotary molding? It goes as a sheet, and this sheet is rolled over by what to say, molds, like similar to what happens. I don't know whether you have seen a chapati making machine, etc. So it impinges, like the dough goes like this, and the roller which contains that mold impinges, so you get that circle or whichever shape it is, and then it goes on. So this is a rotary molder type, something like your good day, etc. come under this category. Okay. And wire cutting, what is wire cutting? As I already told you, they are cut for that particular shape. It is sheeted and then cut in that particular shape. The way, I don't know, when they use do Mysore Pak or any of these things, where it is cut. Probably you would have done the same for your um, maybe your what to say, your milk based sweets, right? They are sheeted and then they are cut. Okay, that is one thing. Wire cutting, they are passed also through holes in extruders, and these doors are then cut in pieces which are dropped into an oven band. And here these type can be co-extruded also. Example, I think I already told you, is the your dark fantasy, etc. So these ropes can be cut after or before baking. The examples are chocolate cookies, etc. Depositing type. What is a depositing type? Soft pourable short dough passed out from extruder and directly laid on the baking bands. The depositors may rotate to make twirls and twists. So the cream treat, etc., belong to this category. I think you have already told. So mixing, shaping, or forming. Again, as I already told you, depending on the process of mixing, whether water is added to the flour and made as a dough, or whether the sugar and fat are creamed, and then the flour is added, you have the hard dough and the soft dough or a short dough biscuit. Fine. So mixer, vertical spindle mixer, horizontal mixer, details you can see. This is for mixing, which is one of the important characteristics of a biscuit dough. Right? Horizontal mixer is what is normally followed. Actually, if you go to the industry, in fact, you also have a horizontal mixer in your lab. We have a sigma type of a mixer, if you have observed, okay, or ribbon blender, etc. So these mix and it is poured. This is one more of the commonly used mixers in the industry. Fine. This is the other one, sort of, which is much better for your extrusion type. Okay, continuous process, etc. Okay, I think this is you have already seen. So these are the various steps involved in sheeting and cutting, mixing, then the dough, and the process as the thing is. Rotary molding, again a dough hopper, pulling of the dough, and then you make a particular impression on it. Everywhere you have the scraping of the excess dough, okay, for maximization of the yield. Extrusion, I've already told. The examples are something like your dark fantasy, whatever the center fill that you have, etc. Okay. Baking, as I already told you, unlike the case of bread, which is baked at a constant temperature, in the case of biscuit, the baking is initially at a higher temperature of around 200 to 220, followed by a comparatively lower temperature. This is for a uniform baking of the biscuit, followed by a still lower temperature of around 80 degrees centigrade to ensure a proper texture of the this thing. So cooling, in the sense that you need not mean that I have to put it to room temperature, but cooling is relative to the higher temperature of 220 or 230 degrees centigrade. At the end of the cycle, it is baked or kept at a temperature of um, uh, 80 degrees centigrade, and this is all done in a tunnel oven. I'll try to upload a YouTube this thing also. Okay. Now this is one of the other method of biscuit making. I'll upload it, no problem. As I already told you, once you cream, fat, and sugar, you get a biscuit which is much more open and this thing. Okay. Now, as I already told you, you have sodium bicarbonate, you have ammonium bicarbonate, and ammonium carbonate also being added commonly for this thing. The reason being that sodium at a higher concentration has a characteristic metallic taste, which is not desirable. Okay. Okay. Okay, fine. Now we come to the what to say, troubleshooting and other things. Yeah. Okay. Fine. This is one more of the categories which is got from the British Institute. Okay. So all the same classification already told, semi-sweet, sweet, etc. Okay. Fine. Okay. Now, what is a case of troubleshooting? What are the problems normally observed? The first problem is excessive spread or flow. What do you mean by excessive spread or flow? When I drop it, it starts moving. What happens again? Normally, you will observe this when you come here. So some of this troubleshooting and all, you will better understand when you do it. Now, why is this spreading take place? What is spreading? For example, in the case of bread, if you put it, it will remain as such. There is nothing called as expansion or moving. Whereas in the case of a biscuit, what normally happens is that if you put the biscuit shape or whatever it is, no, either of any of the types, right? Maybe sheeting and cutting or any other thing. If I, for example, initially I put it at a size of something like 10 by 10. Okay. Now, what happens, what will you observe is this excessive spread or flow is that after it comes out of the oven, you might observe the, what to say, length or breadth to be instead of 10 by 10, 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter, for example, from or 5 by 10 centimeter, it will be something like 7 by 10 or something like that. It starts spreading. Now, what is the problem? If it is going to spread, then packing becomes a problem. You get broken biscuits, etc. Now, why is it because of? It is because of the higher amount of sugar. Why? The very high amount of sugar, at a high temperature, it liquefies and it starts moving. So you have to adjust the amount of sugar and the type of flour, both. Because if it is going to be a very weak flour, so too much sugar is one thing, excessively weak gluten is the other thing. That is either the wheat flour, though I think we are showing that gluten and the protein content is not a major factor. It cannot, no, that should be something called as a minimum amount of gluten and sugar that is required. Okay. So either when the network is very bad, or when the sugar is very high, or when the leavening is very high. Now, as I already told you, all these things lead to the problem of spreading. As I already, spreading means from this 10 by 10, it will spread to 15 by 10, etc. Now, what is going to happen? When you are going to keep it in a tray, you keep a particular distance between two dough pieces and put in. At the end of the day, when you see it, everything will be sticking to each other and things like that. The thickness will come down, of course. So decrease the amount of sugar, increase the particle size of sugar. Okay. Check ingredient specifications. What is ingredient specifications? Particularly the amount of protein found, as also the type of fat, etc. Blend with strong flour, which is flour, which is more used, and decrease the amount of sodium bicarbonate. Hollow bottom, this is again a common problem that we observe in our lab. That is, normally you have a shape, a flat shape. Now, if you are going to, what to say, the hollow bottom is, let's see, is this possible? I don't think it is possible to draw here, right? Okay, just a minute. Mm. In this case, for example, okay, shape, right? Fine, okay. For example, right? This is the structure. Now, when you consider the spreading, right? How do I observe? What you observe is that this goes like this. Now, normally, what happens is in the case of a biscuit, when you do, okay, you keep a particular distance, okay, like this for each of the this thing in your stick. Now, in the case of spreading, what is the pattern? This will start expanding. Now, this will start also expanding here, here, etc. Okay. This is also going to expand like that. Okay. Like this. I think, as I already told you, once you do it in the lab, so now you know it, right? Are you able to see it?
Yes, sir.
So when it comes out of the oven, okay, you'll get a structure like this where you have to break. Whereas ideally it should be something like this. Okay, so this is the case of spreading. Now, what do you mean by a hollow bottom? The bottom, if you see the view, okay. Now, if you, this is the front view, you are supposed to get it like this. Okay. But normally, sometimes or most of the times, what happens is that um, when due to certain reasons, what we get is, you know, you'll get it like this. Um, oh, sorry. So you'll get it something like this. Okay. The lower part will be like this. Now imagine the thickness itself is something like 3 or 4 mm or something. In this, um uh, because of other things, you the bottom instead of a flat bottom, you get something like this. So this is what you call as hollow bottom. Um, just a minute. Hmm. Okay, fine. Okay. So, or the biscuit structure being distorted due to toughening. This is because of uneven balance of baking temperature or oven conditions. As I already told, you know, this is one of the other common problem that we encounter in our lab. Why? Uneven balance of baking. Now, again, as I told for, remember, I told the same for your biscuit also. Whatever our oven has a capacity of 10 kg, and when I'm going to put 100 grams in a 10 kg this thing, there is an excess temperature which leads to all these problems related to equipment. So toughness caused by overdeveloped gluten. Again, one more thing is that gluten uh, you should not allow, or else immediately you have to keep it for baking. In some cases, of course, we'll see. Of course, again, as I said, once you come here, you'll come to know. That is, um, in the case of some of these hard dough biscuits, okay, what we do is that we keep the dough for sort of proofing. Now, what we actually do, we add the, particularly for the hard dough type or the low fat type, the atta biscuit or something, what we do, we take the atta, we take the low amount of sugar and fat, we mix it, and we normally keep it in a fridge. That is, we keep it at a lower temperature, which helps in the distribution of fat throughout the dough. And one more thing is, sorry for introducing chemistry in it. You have what is called as the beta prime structure, which is much stable and which is a characteristically better than other things. So that conversion takes place. So you know, um, again, when you come here, you'll know the biscuits. Even if you have a hard dough biscuit, when I'm going to what to say, alter the time, you know, or slightly when I alter the procedure, I get a better biscuit. So that is the other thing. Hope you understand. Yes, no? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. The third is checking. What is checking? There is an excess change in moisture, gradient in moisture between the inside and the outside. Now, in the case of a biscuit, there is nothing much called as an inside and an outside because the thickness is very strong. But because of this, then there are cracks and other things appearing on the surface, which is called as checking. Now, this checking is because of uh, moisture migration from the center to edges, etc. So here, biscuits breaking without being subject to outside forces. So biscuits lower fat and sugar, and hard dough biscuits are said mostly are susceptible, which are lower in fat and sugar. Okay, are susceptible to this. This is because of the what to say, change in moisture or moisture migration. This is because of excess of temperature. A decrease oven section temperature and post baking drying to equilibrate moisture in hot biscuits. What do you mean by that? As I already told you many times, I've also told earlier also, in most of these products which are at a higher temperature, maybe fried products or other things, you have to cool it and then consume it. Now, what do you mean by post baking drying? As I already told you, remember, we were talking about cooling. And remember, I told that cooling does not mean I have to keep it at a temperature of 15 or 20 as what we tell as cool. Now, what is cooling? Cooling is a decreased temperature or a reduced temperature as compared to the temperature which of the oven. Now, here what they are telling, I have to keep at a temperature which is lower than the baking temperature. So that is why I told that initially it is around 200 to around 220 to 230 degrees centigrade, then around 160 degrees centigrade, followed by 80 degrees centigrade. Now this 80 degree is a lower temperature or something like a cooling for a biscuit which is kept at 250 degrees centigrade or 280, whatever temperature degree centigrade. Instead of that, what do you mean by post baking drying? After drying, when I take the literal meaning of cooling, and if I'm going to suddenly take it out and cool it to room temperature, what is going to happen? Hello? Inside you have a temperature of 150 or something, or 200. Immediately I put it at 20 or 25 degrees centigrade. There is a large difference in moisture between the outside and the inside, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
outside will have a relative humidity of around 80 or something. Inside, your biscuit is going to have a relative humidity or your water of maybe 4 or 5%. This sudden heat shock will make the biscuit start breaking. Okay, so that is what you call as checking. Fine. Now with this we finish the um, cake part of it. Now um, we move over to uh, cakes and we'll see. Okay. Um, okay. Fine. Yes. Um, coming to cakes. Fine. Cakes, are what are cakes? Yes. Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody give it. Caution, I have to call names and maybe send you out if you are not responding. Right? Yes.
Soft baked products, sir.
Emma?
Soft baked products.
Baked product, fine. Apart from that, now bread is also baked and what to say? Um, your biscuit also is baked. Yeah. So how do you what to say? How do you characterize a um, cake? Quick, 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 quick. Because this again we need to what to say. Um, this is also part of your this thing.
Texture.
Yeah.
Texture, sir.
Texture. How is the texture?
Soft, sir.
Soft,
Soft.
spongy.
Okay. Apart from that, texture is soft. Apart from that, how will you differentiate a biscuit and a bread and a cake?
Biscuit have hard texture.
It is do you call it as hard?
Uh,
Is it hard?
Cracking texture.
Enma? Hello?
Sir, cracking textures.
Cracking. Not, it is not cracking, it is crispy. Right?
Yes,
You have a crisp texture which is expected for a, what to say, crispiness is what you expect in the case of a biscuit. Whereas we don't expect such things in the case of a, what to say, um, uh, how do you have a biscuit? So sorry, how do you have a cake?
Spongy.
Spongy texture. Okay. So that is the one thing that is. So we have a spongy texture. So that again is because of, as I already told you, either a higher higher fat content and a higher sugar content. So when the fat is higher or when the sugar is higher, you get a characteristic feature. Details, I think, unfortunately, chemistry is everywhere. Chemistry is related here also. Okay. So, well, so cakes are, when you consider cakes, cakes are sweet, short and tender texture and namely, and these are a soft texture and this come under the category of um, sponge as you already told you. Okay. And the characteristic feature of cakes are the characteristic texture of cake is because of both physical and chemical leavening, which is very important. Okay. Because in the case of bread, the texture is more desired because of the mixing is one, but at the same time, the yeast plays an important role. In the case of biscuit, it is the chemical leavening which plays an important role. Whereas in the case of a cake, it is both physical and chemical leavening which really play a very important role in the texture. So it is a combination of physical. What is physical? Your beating and things like that. And one more important thing in the case of cakes is that the physical leavening or physical aeration plays a much higher or a important role as compared to chemical leavening. Details we'll see subsequently. Okay. So basically, these are, the categories of cakes are foam and shortened based on the method of preparation and the texture. The shortened style cake, like chocolate cake, etc., has a cum texture derived from a fat liquid emulsion that is created during the batter processing. What do you mean? And normally, the characteristic feature of this shortened, or the name such as shortened, shortening. So these have a high amount of fat or sugar. So both fat or sugar prevent gluten formation and extension. So the chocolate cake or a pound cake has a comparatively higher amount of fat and a higher amount of sugar as compared to the foam style cakes. Foam style cakes are angel cake or chiffon, which is the foaming and aerating of egg. What is the difference between these two? We'll subsequently see later. So here it is the egg, the aeration of the egg playing an important role. Here it is more to do with the amount of fat added. I think your devil's delight and other things, or your chocolate cake and your everything. How is the texture of it as compared to your tea cake? No. How, what is the difference? How do you characterize the texture? Yes. How would you characterize the texture in the sense? Um, how do you compare these two? Hello. Yes. Hello. Are you people there? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, tell me. You have your devil's delight and other things, right? You know what is the devil's delight or no?
Sir, I haven't tasted.
How about the others? You have a group which is specialized normally in cake, right? Yes. But
Sir,
how is a chocolate cake as
chocolate.
compared to? Yeah, tell me. Hello. Hello.
Moisture, difference in moisture content, sir. I think I
Yeah,
cannot.
moisture means how is it like? Mouth feel? How is the mouth feel? How is the texture, the structure?
It's
Hope you have.
creamy and it's kind of say, soft, no, sir. The
It is
mouth is soft.
how
Sense.
soft. How about the tea cake as you call, no? Which are pound cake and cut cake. How are these?
Yeah, I haven't, I haven't had a tea cake.
Heh,
I don't know
tea cake,
this.
not that I. Don't know. You don't have any cakes. Huh? How about others? Like Sri Hariharan? Sri Hariharan, are you there? Hello? Sri Hariharan? You're not answering. I'm going to remove you. Simple. Okay. So one has been removed. Kavi Bharati? Kavi Bharati, are you there? Hello?
Sir,
Sulpa. See, unless you are going to register in the GCR, I'm not going to give attendance. Simple. Hello? Because there are
okay.
still at least 5 people or so who are yet to register. Okay. What is the tea cake? You know that, right? Who is it? Hello? Yes, put on the camera. Hello? Yeah, tell me. Hey, you are muted. Hello? Tell me. Tell something. Hello? ஏதாவது சொல்லுப்பா கேக்கே சாப்பிட்டது இல்லையா வாழ்க்கையில
Sir, break ஆகி வருது.
என்னம்மா
Break ஆகுது. So,
என்னப்பா
sir, voice break ஆகி எனக்கு வருதுங்க.
அப்படியா சரி ஓகே ஓகே ஃபைன் ஆண்டனி குரியன்
Sir.
Yeah. Yes. So what is a normal cake? You know the normal cake, no, that they serve, which is almost like a bread. No, what is the difference between that bread and your what to say? Your angel, your no, what I can call that devil's delight and things like that. No, the normal chocolate cakes that you see, right?
Yes, sir.
Hello. So how? What is the difference? Yes. Looks like nobody has the so whatever it is, let's see. Fine. So anyhow, this is also part of your this thing. So it's up to you whether you answer or not answer. Fine. So you have the shortened style and the foam style. Foam style is more to do with developing of the texture by beating of the egg. So that is why if you consider your angel cake and other things, we don't add any of the leavening agents. We'll see subsequently. So the raw materials used include flour, which should have around a protein content of 8%, and normally it's bleached and treated with chlorine gas. Chlorine gives the color. It also lowers the pH. It also oxidizes, increases the water absorbency of the starch, and sugar is a component for water. So what basically it is, it contributes to the smaller crumb and a stable product. Denaturation of the protein, reducing the elasticity of gluten. Why? It is already oxidized, so preventing any whatever the linking, the gluten formation is prevented because the structure is already oxidized. It's an oxidizing agent. So now I think I already told you here it is an intra-disulfide linkage, whereas in the case of gluten it is polymer disulfide linkage. Okay. Leavening agents, carbon dioxide, either by indirectly by taking a baking powder, etc. Steam and air, all the three are used. Now steam because of the higher temperature, and air is also used. Now in the case of leavening agent, it involves baking powder or baking soda. Sodium bicarbonate, on treatment gives carbonate and carbon dioxide. Now, obviously that bicarbonate or carbonate, the moment you add it to water, carbon dioxide is released. So what basically happens is that not much of carbon dioxide is available for the leavening action at the baking temperature. So as a result, what they have done is we go for what is called as a double acting powder. Okay, the double acting, first is the single or fast acting, which contains sodium potassium tartrate or monocalcium phosphate and sodium bicarbonate. The reason here is that this combination, your sodium potassium tartrate on addition of water gives tartaric acid, which then releases this. Okay, so this is one of the method of leavening. Okay, that is by instead of making the carbon dioxide liberate at a room temperature, I modify the condition such that it is available at the temperature of baking, which is more than 100 or 150 degrees centigrade. Okay, so you have what is called a single or fast acting. It is not off, it is or fast acting. Okay, so this sodium potassium tartrate leads tartaric acid. Tartaric acid is a mild acid as compared to your citric acid and HCl, etc. So the change in pH is very less, and this leads to slow release of bicarbonate. Almost the same thing like this. Sodium bicarbonate plus H+ gives sodium ion and carbon dioxide. Okay. The second thing is called as a double acting or slow acting. Double acting powder is what we normally use here. It is slow acting. It is slow acting because it has a characteristic where the leavening takes place both at room temperature and also at the temperature of the baking. So it has a combination where the change in acidity is made slowly, that there is a liberation of carbon dioxide. So it is a combination of sodium aluminum sulfate and monocalcium phosphate. So basically what happens, monocalcium phosphate, the carbon dioxide is liberated, acid is converted to a variety of phosphates also. Sodium bicarbonate, calcium phosphate gives disodium phosphate, trisodium phosphate, and the carbon dioxide. This happens within the first 2 minutes of mixing. And one more thing we'll see later is that you cannot beat the cake batter after the leavening agent is added. Normally, leavening agent is whisked into or just mixed and immediately kept. Why? To to prevent the loss of carbon dioxide. So this happens at room temperature. After this, what happens is sodium aluminum sulfate is not that strong an acid. It slowly liberates, solubilizes in hot water and produces sulfuric acid. So in this presence of sulfuric acid, again what happens, instead of bicarbonate, you put it sulfuric acid here. So basically what happens, you have aluminum sulfate, etc. and a second set of carbon dioxide is liberated. Okay. So aluminum sulfate, okay, gives sodium sulfate, aluminum hydroxide, and this thing. Okay. So sodium bicarbonate reacts with the sulfuric acid formed by conversion of this alum. Okay. So this is how carbon dioxide is liberated. So a sponge cake is made by first making a stable foam and then cooking it. What is a stable foam? Stable foam is by beating the egg white. So what is the importance of mixing in this case? In the case of bread, we have seen that mixing is responsible for the dough structure. Here, mixing is responsible for the uniform dispersion of air bubbles in the batter, because here it is a batter. What you are basically doing during the beating stage is that you are incorporating air into the mixture, into the batter. Okay, and while beating, what is happening is that the larger bubbles are broken down to small bubbles. You get a uniformly characterized batter. Okay, so complete dispersion of the ingredients and incorporate air into the mix. These are the two things. Incorporation of air takes place during a rapid incorporation in the form of large bubbles and stabilizing period where the bubbles are reduced in size. Now, when you have the okay, I think we'll stop it here. Tomorrow we'll continue with it, and we'll till cake we'll have it for the